Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NFL DFS video for week number 4. If you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how this week's video will be structured. We'll be going through my player pools for both DraftKings and FanDuel. If there's a player that's not listed here and you really want to play him, do not fret. You can definitely still play them. This is just kind of my general player pool for this week overall. This sheet will also be listed on my Patreon page, kind of be updated if there's any other major changes as we get headed into lock. So definitely be sure to look out over there. If you have any specific questions related to NFL DFS for week number 4, be sure to drop them down in the comment section as well. But without further ado, we're going to start off with the DraftKings side. We're going to start off with the quarterback position. We got Jalen Hurts, $7,200, going against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who did struggle quite mightily last week versus Denver. Pretty young, inexperienced secondary, banged up at this point too as well. I believe Antoine Winfield Jr. is out once again. So like the upside of Jalen Hurts, both rushing the ball and throwing the ball. Devonta Smith's out this week. A.J. Brown kind of questionable. So receiving options might be a little bit more hit or miss, which might actually lead to him running the ball just a little bit more in general as well. Then we have C.J. Stroud, $7,000 going against Jacksonville Jaguars. That defense is pretty banged up at this point in time. They've been allowing a lot of fantasy points to wide receivers. So stacking C.J. Stroud with, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, you can definitely do that. Tank Dell's out this week, so don't play him. There is always Robert Woods if he ends up being the slot guy this week. So could be a cheap dart throw if you really want to go that direction. Then we got Kyler Murray going against the Washington Commanders. Their defense has really struggled mightily, especially against the pass. Kyler Murray's had a pretty strong start to the season, has a little bit of rushing upside, so definitely do like his upside. The opposite side of the game, we got Jaden Daniels, $6,500. Going against the Cardinals, they were kind of expected to be one of the lesser defenses in all the NFL this season. Daniels coming off a couple of strong performances, so definitely warrants that price tag of $6,500 at this point in time. Move down to Sam Darnold, $5,700 going against the Green Bay Packers. Darnold's off to a really strong start to the season, so his price tag should probably be closer to $6,200 just based on what he's done so far. Packers defense has played really well to start off the season. A little bit banged up at this point in time. We'll see what that ultimately ends up looking like, but there is some upside to be had with Sam Darnold just in general. Then we move down to Matthew Stafford going against the Chicago Bears, $5,600. There's not that many weapons around him right now at this point in time, if we're being honest. No Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua, so maybe a little bit tougher a matchup. Probably a lot less ownership going to him this week, but definitely don't mind that price tag. And then last but not least, we have Andy Dalton, $5,300. He's going against the Cincinnati Bengals, his former team, obviously. So if you're in that revenge game narrative, could be pretty good. He looked really good in his first week as a starter for the Carolina Panthers. Adam Thielen's on IR. Deontay Johnson's list is questionable, though. So maybe a little bit more limited upside than we like. But that Cincinnati defense did give up a bunch of points to Washington last week as well. Moving over to the running back position, we got Saquon Barkley going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The defensive line's a little bit banged up at this point in time. I know Vita Vea missed last week. I think he's going to be back this week, but we'll have to see. Definitely some pretty good upside with Saquon Barkley, especially if A.J. Brown ultimately doesn't end up playing as well. Then we move down to Breece Hall, $7,800 going against Denver Broncos. Should be a pretty respectable matchup for him. He's had a really strong start to the season, so not too much else to say here. Alvin Kamara versus the Atlanta Falcons. Decent upside, $7,600. A little bit banged up in practice this week. I believe he was limited all week. I think he's technically listed as questionable, but he should play. If he doesn't play, then obviously Jamal Williams would be a really good play just in general. Then we move down to Kyren Williams going against the Chicago Bears. And if I remember correctly, the Bears haven't been that great against the running back so far this season. Obviously, Kyren Williams commanding a ton of touches and volume in this Rams backfield once again. Everybody was kind of talking up Blake Corum, but he has been essentially a no-show to start the season outside of the one blowout game. Then we have Jordan Mason, $6,700 going against the Patriots. Lion's share of the workload going to him once again. Should have Deebo Samuel back and George Kittle back this week, though, so maybe that limits him just a little bit more. James Conner, $6,500 going against the Commanders. I think there's a lot of stackable options from this game just in general. James Conner, that main running back, could have a pretty strong performance this week overall. Then we got Aaron Jones, $6,400 going against his former team in the Green Bay Packers. Coming off a pretty strong week, pretty strong performance just in general, and you got that revenge game fact. I'm not a big revenge game guy, but what they did to Aaron Jones was kind of dirty, so there could be some extra motive there. Brian Robinson Jr., $6,100. Austin Eckler's out this week. Good matchup versus the Cardinals. Had a pretty strong start to the season, so definitely do like his upside there. Zach Moss going against the Carolina Panthers at $5,900. Panthers have been one of the worst teams against running backs so far this season, so Zach Moss definitely a very good paydown option. Move down to Najee Harris at $5,600. Going against the Colts, obviously they had that really bad performance versus Josh Jacobs. There is no Jaylen Warren this week. That Steelers offensive line pretty banged up, though, at this point in time, so that's kind of one detriment there, but Najee Harris should command the bulk load of the work this week overall. And then last but not least, I just threw Kareem Hunt here, $5,200. Going against the Chargers. Chargers been better on defense this year, but historically in the past couple of years, they haven't been that great against the run. And if Kareem Hunt gets that goal line work, he could play a pretty big role for this Chiefs team just in general. Then we move over to the wide receiver position. We got Justin Jefferson, $8,700, going against the Green Bay Packers. Some people might worry about Jair Alexander. I'm not worried about it because he's done pretty well against him in his career, and Jair Alexander is technically listed as questionable. He's banged up at this point in time. Moving down to Jamar Chase, $7,700, going against the Carolina Panthers. Looks like a pretty good matchup. Might see some J.C. Horn in this matchup, but not too worried about that with Jamar Chase just in general. Marvin Harrison Jr., very excellent matchup versus the Washington Commanders, $7,500. Definitely do like his upside once again this week. Rashee Rice off to a hot start this season. Goes against the Chargers, probably in the slot once again. You're going to go against Jasir Taylor, who is banged up, technically listed as questionable. Christian Fulton, one of their other corners, is listed as questionable. So should be a pretty good matchup for this Kansas City wide receiver group just in general. Moving down to Nico Collins, $7,200. As I mentioned with C.J. Stroud, Jacksonville Jaguars allowing a lot of points to that wide receiver position. So Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, both very much in play versus Jacksonville this week. And then we have Chris Godwin, $6,800, going against the Philadelphia Eagles. Probably the spot you want to attack them the most is going to be against that slot position, so definitely do like his upside once again this week, and off to a really strong start to the season. Brandon Ayuk, $6,400, looks a little bit better if Deebo Samuel misses, but has not done too much this season, goes against the Patriots, so we'll see what that ultimately ends up looking. Heck, maybe if Deebo plays, maybe it looks like a little bit better matchup for him. Might get a little less Christian Gonzalez, which I know a lot of people out there hyping up Christian Gonzalez, but we still got to keep in mind he hasn't even played half a season in the NFL yet. The results have been pretty good, but it's still a very, very limited sample size at that. Moving down to T against $5,900, second game back. Going against the Carolina Panthers should be a pretty attractive matchup for him just in general, but maybe the upside's a little bit more limited still coming off that injury. Terry McLaurin versus the Arizona Cardinals. This is a guy that I like quite a bit once again this week, $5,800. I feel like I've said that a lot of weeks with Terry McLaurin, but there's just not a lot of target competition to go around for this Washington Commanders team. Definitely do like his upside. It's a great price tag at the same time as well. Jawan Jennings, he mainly looks better if Deebo Samuel misses, but in that slot going against the Patriots, very big size advantage versus Marcus Jones there. Jawan Jennings is quite big, and Marcus Jones is like 5'8", 5'9", so that should be a massive size advantage if nothing else. Then we got Jacoby Myers, $5,500, going against the Cleveland Browns defense. I am not a fan of the matchup, but there is no Devontae Adams this week, so Jacoby Myers should be the leading target getter, him and Brock Bowers, for this Raiders team just in general. Move down to Christian Kirk, $5,200, decent matchup in the slot versus Houston Texans. Kind of off to a slow start this year, but I do like his upside just in general in this game. Roman Dunze at $5,200. Don't mind him. He is coming off a pretty strong performance. Keenan Allen looks like he should be back this week, so probably getting a little bit less Roman Dunze, but there's still opportunities to be had here at that. Darnell Mooney, $4,400, going against the New Orleans Saints. He's been quietly good so far this season. It's a good price tag. If they can get a deep shot off against the Saints team, probably going to go to Darnell Mooney and make him look like a good option just in general. Then we move down to Allen Lazard at $4,300 going against the Denver Broncos, probably operating out of that slot once again this week. Probably going to see a lot of Jaquan McMillan if he does ultimately end up playing. He's technically questionable at this point in time. Would be a big size advantage for Allen Lazard there. If it's not him, it's probably somebody lesser in that slot and looks even better. Andre Iosivas, $4,100, if you want to take that stab with him once again for the Cincinnati Bengals team. A lot of different ways to get to these Bengals wide receivers. So if you want to play Joe Burrow, you can definitely do that as well. And then my two kind of dart throw guys for this week overall. Calvin Austin for the Pittsburgh Steelers, $3,300, going against the Indianapolis Colts. Primarily operates out of the slot. Kenny Moore, the very good slot corner for the Colts, is not playing this week. So should be some opportunities there. Calvin Austin did connect on a deep pass with Justin Fields last week. So if we can get that once again, $3,300, he's going to be a very good dart throw. And then Trey Palmer at $3,000 going against the Philadelphia Eagles. Should be the wide receiver 3 for them this week. Jaquan McMillan is listed as doubtful at this point in time. Moving over to the tight end position, Brock Bowers, $5,600. Going against Cleveland Browns, Jordan Hicks looks like he's probably not going to play. He's been not practicing all week. So you got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, whoever else they throw in that linebacker. I do like Brock Bowers quite a bit in this matchup, especially with no Devontae Adams. Definitely do like that upside. Dallas Goedert, $5,100. If A.J. Brown doesn't play, he should be the leading target getter for this team. Going against Tampa Bay should be a pretty attractive matchup at the same time as well. Dalton Schultz has a little bit of upside this week, $4,100. With no Tank Dell, so there's a couple extra targets to go around. They're also going against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Foyer's out at linebacker. Devin Lloyd's listed as questionable, so they could have some pretty young and inexperienced guys in there just in general. Moving down to Zach Ertz, $4,000 going against the Arizona Cardinals. If you want to call this a revenge game, you could do that as well. Been off to a decent start to the year. looks like a pretty decent matchup at the same time as well. Colby Parkinson versus the Bears. It's more about the matchup. If he gets the extra targets, if he gets the touchdown, he could pay off at $3,700. Brenton Strange operating as that tight end one once again for the Jaguars this week going against Houston Texans. Could be a little bit upside there at $3,100. He's been pretty solid in the absence of Evan Ingram just in general. And then last but not least, I threw Tommy Tremble here at $2,700 going against Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think it's the greatest matchup in the world, but if Deontay Johnson misses, there could be some additional targets to go around. Then we move over to the defenses. We got the 49ers going against the Patriots, $3,800. Looks like one of the best matchups on the entire week. Then we have the Jets going against the Denver Broncos. Broncos played pretty well last week, but that Jets defense is pretty tough. I do expect them to have kind of their way with Bo Nix and company. Then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers going against the Indianapolis Colts. $3,300 if they can get some pressure on Anthony Richardson, if they can get him to get some turnovers, if they can stop the run versus Jonathan Taylor. Should be a good week for them overall. You could also play the Colts on the opposite side of that game with kind of the injuries on the offensive line for the Steelers, but if you look at the Colts on their defensive line, they also do have quite a bit of injuries at the same time as well. Chicago Bears, $3,100 going against the Rams. Rams offense line is pretty banged up. Obviously, they're missing Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, so there could be opportunities to be had there just in general. And then last but not least, we have the Vikings who have been playing really well on defense. Going against the Green Bay Packers, it's either Jordan Love making his return. He's kind of banged up. He's listed as questionable at this point in time. Or Malik Willis, who's played relatively well throughout 2 starts, but if Brian Flores can mix up this defense like he did against CJ Stroud and the Texans, against Brock Purdy and the 49ers and the Giants earlier this season, if they can do that to Malik Willis, it's game over, honestly. So a lot of good options in terms of defense this week. We only got 5, but those are the 5 that I would be the most interested in. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown in terms of the DraftKings side. We'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my player pool over there as well. So on FanDuel, it's going to be a little bit bigger. You have the Sunday night game once again. So we're going to add Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson both from that Sunday night game. $9,200, $8,900 respectively. Don't have to talk too much about them. We know the type of upside that they can have on any given slate. Then we have Kyler Murray, $8,700 going against the Washington Commanders. Looks like a really, really attractive option once again. You can play Jaden Daniels on the opposite side of that game at $8,200. It's going to be a very attractive matchup. I think it's going to be a game that does ultimately end up getting stacked quite a bit, though. Then we got Jalen Hurts, $8,600 going against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot of upside to be had there. We'll see whether or not A.J. Brown ultimately does end up playing in this game. If he doesn't, probably going to see a little bit more of Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts relying on his legs just in general. Joe Burrow, I like quite a bit more on FanDuel at $8,000 going against Carolina Panthers. Looks like a really attractive matchup. But once again, if you want to play him on DraftKings, you can definitely do that as well. CJ Stroud is only $7,800 going against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. Yes, I know he's coming off a terrible performance last week, but this Jaguars team is giving up a ton of points to wide receivers. So in turn, probably going to give up a lot of points to quarterbacks at the same time as well. Sam Darnold, $7,300 versus the Packers. Packers defense has played really well so far to start off the season. Sam Darnold's also played really well. So if that trend continues for him, going to look like a value at $7,300. And then last but not least at the quarterback position, we got Andy Dalton, $7,000 going against his former team in Cincinnati Bengals. So if you're into that revenge game narrative, look at Andy Dalton. Look at what he did the first week as the starter for the Carolina Panthers. If he can do that once again this week, should be pretty good just in general, but just keep in mind Adam Thielen's on IR. Deontay Johnson's listed as questionable at this point in time. Then we move over to the running back position. Saquon Barkley, $9,700 going against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll see whether or not Vita Vea plays this week or not. He missed last week. A little bit banged up in terms of that Bucs defense just in general. Barkley looks really good if A.J. Brown misses. Alvin Kamara, $8,600 going against the Falcons. Obviously, we've seen the type of upside he's had so far this season. A little bit banged up at this point in time, but I do expect him to play. If he doesn't play, then obviously Jamal Williams would be a pretty good cash game option on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Then we move down to Kyren Williams, $8,100 going against the Chicago Bears. Bears kind of struggling against running backs so far to start off the young season, so definitely do like his upside once again. Obviously commanding the bulk load of the touches. Blake Corum has been pretty much a no-show to start off the season. Breece Hall, in terms of his price tag between DraftKings and FanDuel, FanDuel looks a lot better because he's only $200 more, and if you compare him to the other running backs, looks like quite a good value. So going against Denver Broncos could be a lot of upside to be had there just in general. Aaron Jones, $7,600 versus former team in the Green Bay Packers. So I definitely do like his upside there. Probably has a little bit extra to prove after they kind of did him dirty. And then we got Brian Robinson Jr., $7,300 versus the Arizona Cardinals. Should be a pretty attractive matchup. Should get most of the work this week with no Austin Eckler at this point in time. Then we got Zach Moss, $6,900 going against the Carolina Panthers, who have been arguably the worst team against running backs so far this season. So definitely do like his upside once again. Get down to Najee Harris versus the Colts. Colts struggled versus Josh Jacobs, I believe, 2 weeks ago, so $6,600. There is no Jalen Warren this week, so Najee Harris should get some additional touches. And if he can be effective on those touches, could be pretty good for him overall. The one major concern there is just kind of that offensive line and how banged up they are at this point in time. Then we got Chuba Hubbard, $6,500, going against the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals are a little bit banged up on the defensive line. Chuba Hubbard is definitely the lead back for the Carolina Panthers. If their offense operates like it did last week, it could be a decent week for him once again. And then last but not least, we're throwing Kareem Hunt down here at $5,500. Just kind of a dart throw. He's a cheap play going against the Chargers. If he gets the bulk load of the carries, if he gets the goal line work, he could be pretty good overall. But just keep in mind that it is his first game back. And then we move over to the wide receiver position. Justin Jefferson, $6,400 going against the Packers. Not really too worried here. You know, he's done well versus Jair Alexander in the past. He's banged up. Definitely do like his upside once again. If you're playing him with Sam Darnold, definitely does make a lot of sense. We got Jamar Chase, $9,200 going against the Carolina Panthers. A little bit of concern with J.C. Horn, but I'm not that concerned at the end of the day, as we definitely know the type of upside that Jamar Chase can have on any given slate. Then we have Rashee Rice, $8,500. Really strong start to the season going against the Chargers. Jair Taylor in the slot. He's technically listed as questionable. If it's not him, it might be Elijah Molden, but Molden might have to play a little bit more safety this week with no Derwin James. So either way, it looks really good for Rashee Rice. Then we got Marvin Harrison Jr., $8,200, going against the Washington Commanders. Arguably the best matchup that you can have for a fantasy football wide receiver. Nico Collins is next up. You can play him or Stephon Diggs, $7,700, $7,100 respectively, going against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have been really bad versus fantasy wide receivers so far to start off the year. Brandon Ayuk, $7,600, going against the Patriots. If Deebo Samuel plays, probably less interested in him, especially at this elevated price tag on the FanDuel side. We move down to Chris Godwin next. He's $7,300 going against the Philadelphia Eagles. Avonte Maddox most likely in the slot. Looks like a really attractive matchup for him just in general. Then we got T. Higgins, $7,200 going against the Panthers. Obviously coming off that injury, maybe a little bit more limited upside, but still definitely do like him as kind of a sleeper play this week overall. Jawan Jennings, $6,800. If Deebo Samuel plays, you can't really play him at this price tag, but if Deebo Samuel misses, looks pretty attractive. Going against Marcus Jones in the slot is a major size disadvantage, so if they get in the red zone, they're probably going to look to him at this point in time. Got Terry McLaurin, $6,500. Definitely do like his price tag on FanDuel as well. Goes against the Arizona Cardinals. A ton of upside in this matchup and not a lot of target competition once again. Then, because we had the Sunday night game, we got Khalil Shakir, who's had a really strong start to the year. He's averaging 12 fantasy points per game over on FanDuel. Going against the Baltimore Ravens, it's not the greatest matchup. You're either going to like Kyle Hamilton or Darius Washington, whoever else they're throwing in the slot on any given week versus Khalil Shakir. If it's against Kyle Hamilton, I don't mind it quite as much because I think he's a little bit more sly than him and going to beat him in and out of breaks just a little bit more often. But he's been a good target getter for this Bills team early on in the season. Then we got Allen Lazard, $5,800. Like the matchup versus the Denver Broncos, it's either Jaquan McMillan or whoever his backup's going to be, as he is listed as questionable this week. So there definitely could be a lot of upside with Allen Lazard, especially in the red zone. Then we get down to Darnell Mooney, $5,700, going against the Saints. Not the most attractive matchup in the world, but kind of a dart throw if you get the long play out of him. Could be pretty good overall. Then we got Christian Kirk, $5,600. Pretty attractive matchup versus the Texans in the slot. Hasn't done the greatest so far this season, but I would not be shocked if this is kind of his big breakout game early on the year. Then we have Andre Eusebius, $5,500, going against the Carolina Panthers. It's an average matchup versus Troy Hill in the slot. We'll see how they move these wide receivers around. Obviously, if they're focused in on Jamar Chase, if they're focused on T. Higgins, could be a little bit of upside for him. Obviously, does have some touchdown equity as well. Then we got Jacoby Myers, $5,400 on FanDuel. Really good price tag. It's not the greatest matchup versus the Cleveland Browns, but there is no Devontae Adams this week. I believe he's actually cheaper on FanDuel than he is DraftKings. I'd have to go back and double check that, but either way, the price tag is very, very similar. And then we have our two dart throw players once again in Calvin Austin, $4,900. If he catches another long pass, another long touchdown from Justin Fields, going to be pretty good overall. Goes against the Colts this week, who are without their star slot corner in Kenny Moore, so really good matchup there. And then Trey Palmer, $4,300, playing in place of Jaquan McMillan, who is listed as doubtful against the Philadelphia Eagles. He's another guy, if he goes down the field, if he burns the guy, if he gets the long catch, he could ultimately end up paying off at $4,300. Then we move over to the tight end position. Dallas Goedert is $7,500 going against Tampa Bay Buccaneers if A.J. Brown's on. Going to be very, very relevant on this slate, but a little bit more than I like to pay just in general. So I would definitely make sure that A.J. Brown is out first before playing him on the FanDuel side. Then we got Brock Bowers, $6,500. No Devontae Adams this week, so it's going to be mainly him and Jacoby Myers in terms of the receiving department. Definitely do like his upside. It's a little bit more of a hit or miss matchup versus the Cleveland Browns, but I do believe there is some pretty good upside to be had there as well. Dalton Schultz with no Tank Dell this week, $5,400. Could see some additional targets. Really good matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are really banged up in terms of their linebackers at this point in time. Cole Kmet is coming off a very strong performance, $5,400. Good matchup versus Los Angeles Rams. Would not be surprised if that happens once again, but do keep in mind that Keenan Allen is going to be back this week. And then we have Zach Ertz, $5,100, going against his former team in the Cardinals. I don't think there's much bad blood there, but definitely do like his upside as the potential number 2 target for this Washington Commanders team. And then last but not least, we have Tommy Tremble, $4,900, going against Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think it's the greatest matchup in the world, but if Deontay Johnson misses, there are definitely some extra targets to go around, and there is no Adam Thielen this week as well. And then last but not least, in terms of the defenses on FanDuel, only got 4 this week. So we have the 49ers at $5,000 going against the Patriots. I don't think we need to say too much there. The 49ers defense generally pretty strong. The Patriots offense really weak at this point in time, especially along that offensive line. Definitely like the upside of that 49ers team. Jets going against the Denver Broncos. Broncos played well last week, but if they can get after Bo Nix and company, should be a pretty good game for this Jets defense once again. Then we have the Chicago Bears at $4,200. Don't mind the price tag here going against the Rams. No Puka Nacua, no Cooper Kupp, banged up O-line. The Bears can get some pressure on Matthew Stafford. There are some opportunities to be had there at that. And then last but not least, we have the Minnesota Vikings, $4,300. Going against the Green Bay Packers, we either got a banged up Jordan Love coming off that sprained MCL, or Malik Willis at quarterback. And if Brian Flores can disguise that defense as well as he did last week once again, and his Malik Willis, he has essentially no chance in this game. So definitely do like the upside of that Vikings defense once again. But with that being said, that's what I do have in terms of my player pool for both FanDuel and DraftKings. As always, if you have any questions related to NFL DFS for week number 4, be sure to drop them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then as always, I'll be posting up my NFL DFS cheat sheets on the YouTube community tab, on Facebook, and on Twitter, so definitely be sure to look out for them as well. Just a very, very condensed, simplified version in a graphic of this player pool that I do have here. Once again, the sheet will be up on Patreon. If there's any other additional changes to it, I will have it in the sheet as well. Don't expect too much at this point in time since I'm recording Saturday morning, so we have most of the injury news. Unless we get some surprise inactive, probably going to be pretty straightforward this week just in general. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. It helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have NFL DFS in terms of the player pool video. This video typically comes out either Friday evening or Saturday morning, so definitely on the lookout for that. And then I also have my CFL DFS video dropping once a week, typically on Thursdays. Every once in a while, I might get bounced up to Wednesday. Just kind of depends on the week. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Parlay Play, and Prize Picks. If you're a brand new user on any one of those 3 sites, when you sign up, make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks and Parlay Play, it's a 100% match up to $100. And then for BetUS, it's a 125% match up to $2,000. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. If you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comment section of this video or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for this week's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tune in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day. No matter what day you're watching this on, a good weekend overall, and some really good luck in NFL DFS for week number 4.